All right, so we always hear the Ciphers Advanced Encryption Standard, AES, but we rarely hear the stream cipher ChaCha, but both of them are TLS 1.3 standards, okay? So in any TLS 1.3 communication, you either choose AES or ChaCha. So ChaCha actually originates from Salsa. Salsa was designed by DJ Bernstein in 2005. It was submitted to the eStream competition. This was a stream cipher competition organized by academicians, okay? So Salsa was one of the finalists, so it was in the final portfolio. So in 2008, a modified version is named ChaCha. So Bernstein actually used Latin dance names for these ciphers. There's also Rumba and other versions. So ChaCha is currently the most famous one. Strangely, Google selected ChaCha 20 and a polynomial called poly 1305 for message authentication to replace RC4 in TLS. So I think this was done in 2013. This was important because in the initial version of TLS, we had a stream cipher RC4, which was also used in web, wired equivalent privacy, but it was broken, and it was broken in a very bad way. So we stopped using RC4 in TLS communications, like TLS 1.2. But if some way your browser allows you to downgrade your TLS, you can go back to 1.0 or maybe even earlier SSLs, and you can communicate using the RC4 stream cipher. So you shouldn't allow your browser to, roll back to very old versions. But since RC4 is broken, Google said that they are going to replace it with ChaCha 20. So they actually put it into their Chrome browsers, mostly in mobile phones and tablets. So Google was like one of the first people to use this algorithm. So OpenSSH also adapted ChaCha 20. ChaCha 20 also used in random number generators in many operating systems. Linux kernel uses ChaCha 20 to generate data for non-blocking urandom device. IETF published a reference implementation for ChaCha in this RFC. Use of ChaCha in IKE and IPsec have been proposed for standardization in RFC 7634. Use in TLS have been proposed for standardization in RFC 7905. And actually in TLS 1.3, it is now a standard. Also, it was used in VPN protocols and so on. As you can see, for some reason, ChaCha actually appears everywhere and not many people know it. So the reason for this is that AES is really fast, and we have in our Intel or ARM processors AES new instruction set, which allows hardware level encryption, which is very fast and beats almost every software implementation of any lightweight cipher. But these hardware instructions are not available in every ARM processor. It is available in AMD and Intel, but not in ARM. So in your mobile phones and tablets, you don't have the speed up. So using a faster algorithm like ChaCha than AES can provide more battery to your device in mobile phones. So this is why it is a good alternative, and this is why Google actually adopted it in as early as 2013. So initial state of ChaCha is as follows. This is represented as 16 32-bit words. So in AES, we had bytes here. Now we have 32-bit values, so we are talking about the larger initial state. At odd rounds, the columns, at even rounds, the rows are processed via the quarter round function. So think about it in this way. At the round 1, we need to process columns. So take this column, okay, you filled it with constants, key, and the nose. You take these 4 values, you write it here, and perform these operations. This is just a quarter round, okay? So you actually repeat it many times, like 12. But since this is for 1 column, you have 4 columns. Actually, what you do in a single round is as follows: 4 copies of this, and you repeat it many times as it is written in the document, sometimes 12. So you've done it, and the results are written back here. Now you are at the second round, then you take the rows this time, write them here, and process them. So in ChaCha 20, you perform this operation 20 times. So at odd rounds, you process columns. At even rounds, you process rows. And this way, after 20 application of this round function, the initial state is modified, and you have a different internal state. From here, you produce the key stream and XOR it with your plain text to obtain ciphertext. So a very simple design. As you can see, it is not surprising that it might be faster on some devices compared to AES. Okay. So a very simple design. But we also have lightweight stream cipher standards in ISO. So these standards were determined in 2012. And I was just checked recently, and this is the final version. So nothing changed until 2022. So there are two dedicated key stream generators for lightweight stream ciphers. First one is Enocoro. It supports two key sizes, 80-bit and 128-bit. Trivium only supports 80-bit security, but we talked about this before. 80-bit security is not acceptable in 2022. So actually, there's no reason to use these standards. I mean, if you have very short term of, if you need very short term of security, then you may use Trivium, but that security window should be really short. Maybe you need security just for a few hours, then you can use this. So let's look at Enocoro, designed in 2008. It is a hardware-oriented stream cipher. Design is similar to a very old hash function called Panama, a pseudo-random number generator by Damon and Clapp. It supports two key sizes, 80 bits and 128 bits. Enocoro 80 can be implemented with 2.7 kilogates in ASIC, comparable to eStream Profile 2 candidates. So I think this is the initial structure of Enocoro. The operations are very simple, like XOR and so on. But if you're interested, you should check the proposal of Enocoro to see how it works. So in the eStream documents, I realized that they provided the throughput like this. So Enocoro has a cycle per byte value like this. So here, this means that how many cycles you need to encrypt a single byte. So lower is better here. Okay. So it is better than some of the candidates, but as you can see, Trivium here is somewhat better in software implementations on Intel Pentium 4. Okay, so this was an old competition, so we are talking about Pentium here. Okay, the comparison of hardware implementations, I think this belongs to Good and Benaisa. So Enocoro achieves this many gates in area. It's very good compared to the other candidates, actually. Okay, but of course, we are now using a different technology, so it is not that easy to compare these two different technologies. Okay. And the second standard is Trivium, designed by Christophe Decanier and Bart Prenel in 2006. This is a stream cipher construction inspired by block cipher design principles. So I will only show you the picture. And so actually, this is a very huge internal state. As you can see, I think 288 bits. So we have a huge internal state. And actually, initially, you have a 80-bit secret key, and you have the nonce IV, and you fill it, but you run this algorithm like, I think more than 1,000 times, if I'm not mistaken, 1,440 something. So this way, you actually modify the internal state, then it is ready to produce the key stream. So initial steps, which is more than 1,000, actually prevents you to perform good brute force attacks, because running this algorithm, and this algorithm, I mean these XOR operations, these rotations, and so on, a single round is really fast, but running it more than 1,000 times actually prevents the brute force attacks. the initialization part takes some time. So compared to sometimes a block cipher, this initialization takes time. So when you are encrypting small amount of data, lightweight block ciphers can be Trivium in a very easy way because the initialization takes time. But once you initialized, if you are going to encrypt a huge data, then Trivium might beat the other lightweight candidates. So there's this kind of differences between block ciphers and STEAM ciphers, because in the STEAM block ciphers, you don't need an initialization at all. You simply divide it into blocks and perform operation on it. Here you have the initialization phase, then key stream production phase. So it is a very simple design. I don't know if the picture explains it, but from these values, you exert, and these ZIs are the outputs, which is the key stream. It is like a rotational thing. This is how they picture it. A very good design, very secure, but unfortunately 80 bits. That is the main problem.